On the other side of our studio, Emma James. Emma, good evening to you. And a complete mood change now. You've been looking at how the second anniversary of the Paris terror attacks have been marked online and in the media.
Yes, I think it's probably fair to say that people in France are really still trying to find a way to come to terms with what happened on this night exactly 2 years ago. And some of the things that we've seen online are exactly what we would have expected to see today, but some of those that we'll talk about a little later, maybe not quite so expected. This image is one of many that's been shared online today, including photographs of all 130 people who actually died on this night 2 years ago, the 13th of November 2015. All 130 victims remembered there. Lots of people posting that just to remind everyone just how many people were lost that night. Others have chosen to recall the spirit of defiance that followed that attack. This was the image at the foot of the statue in the Place de la République a couple of days after those attacks happened. The image in the middle, the banner in the middle, même pas peur, not afraid at all is what that translates as. And it became something of a motto, really, for people who went to the Place de la République to show that they would continue their lives as normal, no matter what. Some of the most touching Twitter messages came from Georges Céline, who is the father of a victim, his daughter Lola. She's 28 years old. She died inside the Bataclan concert hall. And what he says here is that he doesn't know if the Republic will always commemorate the attacks in 10, 20 or even 30 years. But for him, and he's sure for many others, the 13th of November will forever be a day unlike any other. Now, he wrote quite a lot on Twitter today, and the Huffington Post reacted to that, called him up to discuss with him a little bit more his feelings on this anniversary. And what really stands out is that he says this anniversary, the second anniversary, has been so much harder for him to deal with, because the first anniversary, he was still very much in the middle of it all, hadn't come to terms with it at all, but having regained a sense of some kind of normality, trying to come to terms with it, he said this anniversary has basically plunged him back into memories and back into mourning. One other tweet that I saw on Twitter first thing this morning, which I imagine a lot of people share this feeling, really hate this date, along with the broken heart emoji and the hashtag 13 Novembre.
You showed that picture of all the victims. The first face I saw was that of our colleague Mathieu, who was sadly gunned down in the Bataclan. The French president's response to these commemorations has caught, well, a lot of people's attention.
Yes, unsurprisingly, really, because this was a big test for Emmanuel Macron. It's the first big anniversary of a terror attack that he has had to preside over, and it is a moment when he has to be both very sensitive but also very statesmanlike. Now, he tweeted some images of himself speaking to people outside the Bataclan, and what a lot of people picked up on was the fact that he was so emotional. This video shows, again, at times he had tears in his eyes, looking very, very emotional. Bouleversé is shaken, a word that's been bandied around a lot about how he appeared today. And his wife, Brigitte Macron, too, was very visibly upset when talking to families, families of the victims, and understandably so, because it is a very emotional occasion. However, a lot of people on Twitter don't seem to have taken too kindly to this show of emotion from the French president and his first lady. Larmes de crocodile, or crocodile tears, is a phrase that I've seen an awful lot, and I was slightly surprised by it, I have to say. In fairness, a lot of them do seem to be very politically driven. This person describing himself as alt-right, which means he is very far right. What he says is that showing a few tears in the hope of gaining a few percentage points in the opinion polls, because, of course, Emmanuel Macron's popularity has dipped in the last few months, as we know. Now, some people have ridden to the defence of the French president. This gentleman tweeting that it's difficult to hold back tears in these circumstances. Monsieur Macron is like any other person, and he deserves respect. Having read some of the comments by some people, I pity you, he says. And other people feeling very similar as well, that this was a man who was shaken by the despair of others, and they felt that the tears were sincere, not crocodile tears. Other people have less political reasons, perhaps, for being angry today. This is Michael Diaz, the son of Manuel Diaz, the first man to die on the 13th of November. He died at the Stade de France when the suicide bombers blew themselves up. He refused to shake the hand of Emmanuel Macron today, and he has been very forthright in why that is. He feels that the Macron administration has basically treated the victims of terror in a way that is contemptuous and unacceptable. He talks in particular about the fact that Macron got rid of the Minister for the Victims' Assistance, which meant that they no longer felt they had a primary port of call within the government to speak to, no kind of spokesperson. And what he said is that the terror attacks have continued, but the voice of the victims has faded away.
Quickly, is there any sign of optimism on the horizon?
There is one ray of hope that I saw today, and it is a particularly nice article to read in light of some of the anger and bitterness that we're seeing online. It was written by Gregory Rubenberg, who runs La Belle Équipe, one of the restaurants targeted on this night 2 years ago. 19 people died there. What he has said is that people of France need to rediscover the spirit of the 11th of January when those huge Republican marches took place. 3.7 million people. That was in the wake of Charlie Hebdo, of course. 3.7 million people marched across France, and what he says is that against the spirit shown then, their bombs can do nothing.
Emma James, thank you very much indeed. Emma James of MediaWatch. Kate with the business, thank you, Kate, as well. And thank you for being with us, and do stay with us. More news to come here live from Paris.